You cannot create urgency, you can only uncover it. Every day, a sales leader somewhere tells their team to create some urgency to close pipeline, and under stress to close, reps reach for discounts, they offer special terms, they ask for personal favors, and they lose deals they should have won. The problem? You cannot create urgency, you can only uncover it. So instead, your reps apply sales pressure and it costs them deals. Hello, I am Leslie Bennett's USA Today Top 50 Bestselling Author of Profit Generating Pipeline, a 4-time head of sales, and a top 1% B2B sales expert. Now I teach teams that outbound how to earn trust to drive revenue. Today, we're breaking down one of the most misunderstood and most misused concepts in B2B sales, discounting. I'm going to tell you the difference between urgency and sales pressure and why discounting is costing you deals you should have closed. Stick around because I'm going to give you a 4-question framework that you can use in your very next discovery call to uncover real urgency, and I'm going to show you exactly how to use that urgency to close deals without having to apply pressure. So let's start with why this matters so much, because the data here is genuinely uncomfortable. HubSpot found that only 17% of sales professionals consider their style to be pushy, but buyers describe sellers as pushy 50% of the time. So there's a gap there, right? Like, as sellers, we do not realize that we are being pushy, but we are giving our buyers the ick. And according to Gartner, buyers are 50% less likely to close when they are pressured. 50%. And even when those deals do close, they close at lower price points and with longer sales cycles. So everything that we've been taught about discounting to get a deal done, it's a lie. So imagine this. You were planning to buy something, you'd done your research, you'd done the math, and you had showed up ready to make the purchase. And then the rep got so pushy, like so needy, so focused on their timeline instead of yours that you were like, yikes, why are they so desperate into bullying me into making this purchase? Maybe even you ask yourself, is this a scam? The reality is that buyer confidence is what closes deals. Sales pressure is what kills them. Later, I'm going to share my 4-question framework to help you build that buyer confidence and urgency. But first, let's make sure we understand the difference between urgency and sales pressure. Because sales pressure is external. It's imposed by the seller, usually based on the seller's timelines or quota attainment. And it often shows up as incentivized action, those types of discounts that we were talking about. It could also show up in extra months thrown in, like some extra value or maybe even a little bit of a personal favor. None of those things have anything to do with what the buyer needs. They're entirely about what the seller needs. On the other hand, urgency is internal. It's something the buyer feels internally. It is their own motivation to move forward based on their needs and their timelines. And despite what any sales leader might suggest, you can't just magic up urgency out of nowhere to get a deal done. Bottom line is that urgency can only be uncovered and sales pressure is always manufactured. And if you're trying to manufacture something that your buyer doesn't feel, you will close fewer deals at lower price points and they will take longer to close. Okay, so here are the 4 types of questions I use in every discovery conversation. You cannot skip any of them, so stay locked in to the end. If you start using these 4 questions, I am confident that you will be able to stop relying on offering so many discounts so early in the sales process. Here is the 4-question framework. Question 1, what is your top priority right now? Notice that I said priority, not priorities. We need to understand the single most important thing that they are working on right now. If you get a laundry list of priorities, you risk focusing on the wrong thing or just simply focusing on too many things to make that strong business case. Number 2, what is your timeline for solving this? We must know what their timeline is for taking action on that priority and where that timeline is coming from. Like, did their boss tell them to get it done this quarter? Or is it something that they've been thinking about for a while and maybe they want to figure it out before the end of the year? Before you move on to question 3 and 4, you must lock in that one specific priority and the associated timeline and make sure that that timeline is near term. Once you have that clarity, it is time to uncover ROI and COI. So number 3, what's the ROI, the return on investment of solving this priority? Help them quantify the upside of taking action. Like, what does success actually look like for them, for their team, for their company? And I find that the ROI questions are usually easiest for sellers because they're tied to product value. but you might be surprised. It's a bit counterintuitive. But of these 4 questions, I would say ROI is the least important in the framework. If you stop before you get to question 4, you're going to end up defaulting back into sales pressure and you're going to keep losing deals. Question 4, what is the cost of not solving this? So this is the COI, or the cost of inaction question. This is the question that most reps skip entirely, and you cannot effectively leverage urgency without uncovering the COI. When a buyer articulates out loud what that inaction costs them, they start creating their own urgency. That's why you can't manufacture it. You can only help them uncover it and help them see it. I have been studying behavioral science and buyer psychology for 20 years. And here is what I know to be absolutely true. We are significantly more motivated to run away from pain than we are motivated to run towards gain. So let me give you a non-sales example. You go to the doctor, they tell you you're drinking too much and it's impacting your liver health, and they suggest that if you drink less, you'd feel better and be less likely to develop any chronic illnesses related to liver health. You think, sure, maybe I'll think about drinking a little bit less, but I already feel okay. The data shows that very few of us would be motivated to change our habits in that situation. However, if you go to the doctor and they say, if you do not stop drinking immediately, you will develop liver cancer by the end of the year, it is no longer this vague ROI future state. You are being told explicitly what the cost of inaction is. And the human mind is wired to avoid pain more than it is wired to tap into gain. So you know what's driving your buyer. You have 2 language tools to use to reflect it back in a way that keeps the deal moving: ROI and COI. 90% of reps are only using that less effective ROI language that highlights what the buyer is gaining. And don't get me wrong, ROI language is important and it does work, but it only works after you've established enough credibility for those claims to feel real and believable. COI language flips the frame, and it taps into that buyer psychology of highlighting what they will lose by doing nothing, what they will lose by staying in the status quo. In 2025, the Harvard Business Review diagnosed 2.5 million sales conversations and uncovered that 58% of closed lost deals are being lost to indecision, being lost to the status quo. So that means we are not losing to our competitors. We are losing deals because we did not illustrate or articulate the cost of inaction, the cost of staying the same. Using that 4-question framework allows you to uncover urgency so that you do not have to resort to sales pressure to get deals done. Uncovering that cost of inaction increases your close rate, whereas offering discounts too early and too often decreases your close rate. Before I share that discovery script to get you started, let me give you one more piece of data that will change how you think about these pressure tactics forever. According to Gong, just saying the word discount on a sales call decreases the probability that that deal will close by 17%. 17% just from saying the word discount. Now you have the 4-question framework in your toolkit and the data that proves sales pressure doesn't work. So before we wrap, let me give you a sample script that is my absolute favorite way to kick off this 4-question pattern. I have audited thousands of sales calls, and it is super common for prospects to give you 4 or 5 more priorities. And if you remember from question 1 of the 4-question framework, we don't need all of the priorities. We need the top priority. You've heard all of their answers. And then it might sound like, hey, Tina, it sounds like X, Y, and Z are all top of mind for you right now. Of those, which is the most important to get right in the next 6 months? It does 3 things sort of simultaneously. It shows that you are actually listening because you're repeating back, so that builds trust, it builds rapport. It encourages the buyer to stack rank their priorities, and you're already time boxing that top priority by giving them that near-term deadline. And if you want to go even harder, I'll often a follow-up clarification question, which sounds like, great, so why is the most important thing for you to get right in the next 6 months? Or is there anything more pressing? Just remember that you cannot manufacture urgency. You can only uncover it. So using scripts like this is your first step to stop you from losing deals to no decision or to sales pressure. Because here's what's frustrating about all of this is that sales pressure feels like it should work. offering a discount feels like it should help us get a deal done faster, but that is not what happens. Instead, it signals to your buyer that you are moving at your pace and not theirs, and buyers who feel that way do not close. They disappear. So stop losing deals by offering discounts. My ask of you, my invitation to you is to start using this 4-question framework to uncover urgency, to listen for what the prospects are already motivated to act on and be able to reflect it back to them with the right language. Because when you do that, you will not need the pressure. The deal will move forward because the buyer feels their own internal motivation, their own internal urgency, and the pressure less, you actually sell more. If this reframed how you are thinking about sales pressure and discounting, subscribe, because in every video on this channel, I'm building around this same principle that earning trust is how you drive revenue. And if you want to go deeper on this exact framework, pick up my book, Profit Generating Pipeline. It is linked below. You can also find it on my website, which is salesledgtm.com/book. So subscribe, and I'll see you for the next one.